I've been really excited for the new 4th generation iPad Air since it was announced last month. And now that it's here, a lot of people are wondering, why would I buy an iPad Pro for $200 more when you could just get this? Well, what if I told you you can get an iPad Pro for the exact same cost? Now that is an interesting question. Today's video is sponsored and made possible by Declutter. They sent over this 2018 iPad Pro for the comparison, and I have to say it's absolutely perfect. It is visually indistinguishable from a brand new iPad. Declutter offers a wide range of current tech at affordable prices, including iPhones, iPads, MacBooks, consoles, wearables, and more. Everything you buy from Declutter is thoroughly inspected with comprehensive testing to ensure it works perfectly. Buying from Declutter is also super easy. It's well organized, and they even have current tech. You can't even buy the 2018 and 2020 iPad Pros refurbished from Apple, and yet Declutter is offering them at really good prices. Also, shipping is free on all orders, and if you check out the link below and use coupon code LUKE10, you can get 10% off your purchase. So what are you waiting for? Go check out Declutter. Actually, wait, I'm gonna revise that. Wait until you see the rest of the video and then go check out Declutter. All right, let's get started. So yeah, this is quite a dilemma, isn't it? At a $200 savings, the iPad Air makes a lot of sense, but at the exact same price, it starts to become a little bit more murky. So here are the stakes for today's video. Whichever iPad is deemed to be of lesser value will be sold off. There is only one winner today. So let's start by talking about the iPad Air. First things first, the color. Yes, the most irrelevant thing, but I just cannot get over this blue. I'm extremely disappointed. When I unboxed it, I legitimately thought they'd sent me a space gray one by mistake. This is the weirdest shade of blue I've ever seen. Setting that aside, the big thing about iPad Air that has got the whole tech world so excited is that it gets you so close to the iPad Pro experience, but shaves $200 off the new price. Having used it for a few days, I really am impressed by how few sacrifices there are. But let's list them anyway. For one, the display lacks ProMotion and is smaller by 0.1 of an inch, which translates to slightly thicker bezels. It also lacks Face ID, opting instead for a Touch ID sensor integrated in the power button. Hopefully next year that'll find its way to the iPhone, that'd be nice. It also features an A14 Bionic chip, which will be slightly less powerful in multi-core tasks than an A12Z, and I guess you could argue that the single camera and lack of LiDAR sensor are a downgrade from the iPad Pro, but I don't think anyone cares in the slightest. When you look at it that way, the iPad Air looks like a steal. So much so that people are wondering, why didn't they make it worse on purpose? Why didn't they make it a little bit thicker, make the bezels a little bit thicker, just to drive more sales to the iPad Pro? Well, the reason is this, the Magic Keyboard. The iPad Air's nearly identical body allows the Magic Keyboard to work on the 2018 and 2020 iPad Pros as well as the new MacBook Air, once again expanding its utility. Wow. So that's a lot of reasons to like the iPad Air. However, those minor concessions you're making for a $200 cost savings become harder to justify when you're saving $0. Enter the refurbished 2018 iPad Pro. Let's start on the front. No sacrifices here. It's got the exact same display as the 2020 iPad Pro, glorious ProMotion, buttery smoothness, and all. It doesn't make any real sacrifices on the inside either. The A12Z is basically just a higher binned variant of the A12X with an extra GPU core enabled. You'd really have to try to spot the differences. Really, the only other thing you give up is the ultra-wide camera and LiDAR sensor. Oh, and there's this big empty camera hole in the Magic Keyboard. Oh no! When compared to the iPad Air, The 2018 iPad Pro is just a little better in every way. I will gladly take the 0.1 of an inch larger display with thinner bezels. I'll gobble up that glorious ProMotion. I'll take the extra performance cores of the A12X, and quite frankly, I won't notice at all that the cameras are identical, the design looks the same, and to be honest, I kind of prefer the normal silver to this weird blue anyway. Actually, before we move on, let's take a moment to explore the performance aspect a little bit. So how different are these two machines, and does it really matter? Well, in Geekbench 5, the iPad Air scores higher in multi-core, 1585 compared to 1124, but lower in multi-core, 4230 to 4652. This makes sense, as the A14 is a newer architecture on a smaller manufacturing process, but the A12X has more cores. In terms of graphics, the iPad Air actually outperforms the Pro, 12,693 compared to 10,995 in Geekbench 5 Compute. This is an impressive performance by the A14 Bionic, and we're also outperforming the iPhone 12 here, by the way, most likely thanks to the increased cooling capacity. Realistically, I don't think many people will notice a difference in performance unless you have the devices side by side. One difference you will notice is Touch ID versus Face ID. I really like the idea of having Touch ID in the lock button, but in practice, I'm not a huge fan of how it was implemented here. Let's break it down into how you would actually interact with the iPad. Like the iPad Pro, you can tap the screen to wake it up. Great, but then you have to reach around to put your finger on the lock button to actually unlock the device. Or you can wake it up by clicking the lock button, but if you do that, there are actually 3 possibilities. You can click it really fast to just wake the screen, you can click it a little less fast to wake the screen and unlock it, or you can click it and leave your finger on the button to wake it up, unlock, and open to the home screen. If you have it on the keyboard case, it can be annoying too because you have to reach up and touch the top left of the device to unlock it. And again, there are 2 ways to interact with it here. You can touch it quickly to unlock, or you can leave your finger pressed to unlock and open the device. It's just too many different ways to interact with it, whereas on the iPad Pro, you tap to wake up, and then you look at the screen, and then you can decide yourself when you want to unlock it. Or if you're on the keyboard case, you can open it up, it unlocks itself, and then you swipe up or 3-finger swipe on the trackpad, and you're done. It's a lot more simple. I think this design of iPad, this use case, is really more suited to Face ID than it is to Touch ID. But I'm curious to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below which method you think is better. I do think there's one downside to both of these devices compared to a 2020 iPad Pro, and that's that they only have 64 gigabytes of storage in their base configuration. The new iPad Pro starts at 128 gigabytes, which is, I'll say it again, the perfect amount. But apart from the storage, I'm gonna be real with you guys. I would take the iPad Pro over the iPad Air any day of the week at this price. And I should mention that my particular 64 gigabyte Wi-Fi only iPad Pro was actually $50 less from Declutter than the iPad Air. I mean, the differences are minor, but to save 50 bucks and add ProMotion, that's kind of a no-brainer. Regardless of which one you pick though, I have to say I'm a big fan of the Magic Keyboard now. When I went in to make this video, I really hesitated about spending another $300 for a keyboard. But it's not just the hardware. This thing transforms the iPad into an extraordinarily useful 2-in-1. It's phenomenal. Sure, it costs half as much as either of these tablets and brings the cost for both closer to $1,000 for the whole setup. But I think it's actually worth it, purely for the functionality you gain. And sure, there are other keyboard with trackpad combos that you can find that are gonna cost a lot less, but in terms of simplicity and quality, I'm not sure you can match Apple's offering. The only thing I don't like about it, I will say, it's very smudge prone. The Air is great, make no mistake. It brings the modern iPad experience to a broader audience. However, I think a refurbished 2018 iPad Pro is an objectively better value, however minor the differences may be. So as I promised at the beginning of the video, I need to pick one of these devices to keep. And I think you could probably tell by now, but it's the iPad Pro. I'm gonna be selling the iPad Air because I think this is just an objectively better deal. So that's going to do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments below if you agree with my choice. Do you think the 2018 iPad Pro is a better deal than the new iPad Air? Let me know in the comments below. I'm quite curious to see what you guys think. And with that, I'd like to thank Declutter for sending over this iPad. Definitely check them out with the link in the description below. And if you like this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Please consider following me on Twitter at Luke Miani, and check out my Twitch channel and my subreddit, which are linked in the description below. And with that, I'll see you all in the next video.